Okay, we are live and ready. So, Tom, if you would be so kind, and join me up front here. And I'm gonna give us a couple mics so they can hear us. And if you wanna. Can you hear us, Roger? I just want to make sure this mic's not muted.
No, I hear you. You're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Tom, if you want to repeat after me. I, Thomas Dietrich,
I, Thomas Dietrich,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Seldovia,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Seldovia,
state of Alaska,
state of Alaska,
and that I will faithfully and honestly
and I faithfully and honestly
perform the duties of the Office of the Planning Commission
perform the duties
of the Office of the Planning
Office of the Planning
Commission
Commission
of the city of Seldovia.
of the city of Seldovia.
Congratulations. Thank you for joining the team.
Thank you.
You go ahead and sign that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ready?
Okay, Madam Chair, we're ready.
All right. I'd like to call to order the Seldovia Planning Commission regular meeting on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021 at 6:06, 5 p.m. 6:03 on my cell phone. All right, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Forsberg,
Here,
Mr. Dietrich,
Here.
Miss Ryan,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Good. All right, so we're going to move on to item C, approval of the agenda.
move to approve.
And we'll need a second.
I approve.
Oh, you got to second it. You got to say.
Oh. I second it.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion, any objection? Right, if none, we'll have a roll call on the approval of the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Forsberg,
Approve.
Mr. Dietrich, and
Approve.
the approve, and Miss Ryan.
Approve.
Motion carries.
Okay, so then next is item D, approval of minutes from April 7th, 2021, April 5th, and June 2nd, 2021. And all those were in the laydown or this other,
The packet.
the packet. And yes, lots of minutes to go through. So it'd be good to get caught up, it looks like. Yeah. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at them, but we needed a motion to approve them.
Yeah, make a move to approve.
And can I second that?
Sure.
Oh, okay, I'll second it. Is there a motion? Let's see, is there any objections or discussion? Guess not. So I guess we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Forsberg,
I approve the minutes.
Mr. Dietrich,
I approve the minutes.
and Miss Ryan.
I will approve the minutes.
Okay, motion carries.
There was actually a little typo thing, but I think I'll just show you that later.
Okay,
There's nothing major at all. All right, so item E is next. Public comments regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
there does not appear to be anybody from the public at this time.
Okay, so then we'll move on to item F. There are no public hearings. prior notice. Item G, consideration of site plans, there's none. Item H, commission business. Item 1, appointment of chair and vice chair. There's a presentation by staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as cited in Seldovia Municipal Code 18.04.010B, a chairman and a vice chairman of the commission shall be selected annually and shall be appointed from and by the appointed members of the commission. And our previous chair and vice chair have both resigned from the commission and moved on to places outside of Seldovia. So we now have both seats open if the commission would like to discuss and appoint a member to either the chair or the vice chair seat.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item? Is that where we're at?
Yep, still
Okay.
no public.
Yeah. So then I'll ask for commission discussion. So if somebody can be nominated for chair.
How many people are left on the board?
So there's 3 of you right now, and we're looking to get 2 more. But for right now, we need a chair that will run the meetings and then a vice chair that will run the meetings if the chair is not available. And you can either volunteer or nominate somebody, or, just discuss who you guys would think would be the best person to serve either role.
And I'm serving at tonight as in whatever temporary role.
Gotcha.
So we had somebody.
Well, I nominate you, Ren.
I figured.
Sounds new. I second that. So I'm too new to go do that yet, so. Here to
Can I
learn.
nominate Roger for the vice chair?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I second that.
So, let's see.
Do you want to call for a roll call on each? You have the first motion by Mr. Forsberg, seconded by Mr. Dietrich to nominate Ms. Ryan as
Okay,
the
then I gotta ask for a
commission
roll call.
chair.
Yes, I guess we should ask for a roll call vote. Do you want to do it both in one roll call?
We could do it in one if you want. So roll call vote for both motions. And it'll be Mr. Forsberg,
Yes. Approve.
Mr. Dietrich,
Yes, I approve.
and Ms. Ryan.
I guess so. I rise to the challenge, right? Okay, so got through that item. I guess you don't have to do this part. but just- So we're up to H2, City of Seldovia 2014 Comprehensive Plan Review. The land use section, presentation by staff.
You have to hold it in. Yeah, do you want me to just get you a regular microphone?
All right, Commissioner Forsberg, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, so thank you, Planning Commission members, for assisting the City of Seldovia with the review of the 2014 Comprehensive Plan. And because we have some new members, I'll get you guys caught up. In 2014, the City of Seldovia adopted a comprehensive plan. And to quote from the plan itself, which is available online, it says that the Seldovia Comprehensive Plan is intended as a framework to guide development and strategic community investment over 10 to 20 years. It represents a broad community vision defined by residents during a 2013 public process. This document also provides the legal basis under state law for adopting land use regulations. And so the comprehensive plan is also a tool. It helps the city leverage local resources, promote economic vitality and adaptability, and retain valued aspects of the community into the future. So this plan was adopted in 2014 based on a big community process in 2013. And we are undergoing, or we have the assumption that it's never been reviewed since it was adopted. And so council last year under resolution, if I can find it. I lost my tab here, but under a resolution that was adopted last year, the Soldovia City Council, here it is, 21-26, asked that the Planning Commission review and provide an analysis regarding the city's implementation of the recommendations outlined in the 2014 City of Soldovia Comprehensive Plan. And so I'm going to share my screen and share the document itself with the commissioners. And then we're going to continue on with the review. And so the Planning Commission members for the past few months have already reviewed certain sections. So tonight you're going to be looking at land use and community and human resources. And we'll give you a broad update on what the city of Soldovia has done as far as staff are aware of accomplishing the mission and goals that are in the comprehensive plan. But there may be things that we missed just because we're new. We weren't involved in the development of the plan. And so there may be things that commissioners know that would be helpful to include in the review. But the overall goal, and you'll hear about that in the presentation itself, is that the Planning Commission members will have reviewed the plan, and then we'll tell the Soldovia City Council, here's our review of your plan. Here's how we think the community has been doing on the comprehensive plan. Here are some things that maybe the city could focus on to actually implement, or here's some success stories we've had, or here's where we need to improve. So let me pull up where you can find the comprehensive plan online. So it's on, if you just Google the City of Soldovia Comprehensive Plan, you'll see this document here, very beautiful photos and great charts. A lot of really good information about the community. So I highly encourage all Planning Commission members, as you've already been doing, to review the document. And you may find things that we don't touch upon at this meeting, but maybe you'll have additional comments that you can offer to staff in the future. So without further ado, we're going to start with the review of the land use component of the comprehensive plan. Let's see. All right, so the land use section of the 2014 Soldovia Comprehensive Plan Review. So again, for tonight, the agenda and the role of the commissioners and staff is we're going to review the comprehensive plan land use goals. We're going to evaluate how these goals compare to the relevant actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies that are mentioned under every goal. And then the Planning Commission will synthesize their recommendations on this topic by rating how the city has done, in your opinion, on these various topics. And so staff are here to help facilitate the Planning Commission's evaluation of the comprehensive plan by presenting information. And as mentioned before, this information that we present to you tonight is not all encompassing. Commissioners may have additional examples or insights that should be discussed and included in this review. And then staff is operating under the assumption that the 2014 comprehensive plan has not been reviewed by the city since its adoption. So commissioners are encouraged to consider what the last 7 years have been like when conducting their analysis. And then it says on here, it's a goal for the planning commission to present the recommendations at the September 13th Soldovia City Council meeting, but that may be a little too soon. So we'll see after we go through all the sections, there's one more after tonight that we'll review. And then the planning commission could nominate someone to then attend the Soldovia City Council meeting and give the planning commission's synopsis of how the comprehensive plan review went. So it's a big undertaking, but a very worthy cause, and the city is lucky to have a planning commission that can help do the heavy lifting of the past 7 years. All right. So normally we would have provided a rubric in your packet, and I don't think you got it in your packet this go around. So we'll just have you write on a sheet of paper when we're going through the various goals.
They have it as a lay down.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, City Clerk. So you have the rubric then before you. And then the idea is you're going to rate the components of each goal on a scale of 0 to 5. 0 means no work has been done, and 5 means the focus area has been accomplished or significant progress has been made. And I know that there was feedback given about the way the presentation has been made, but because this hasn't been looked at for 7 years, we're sticking within the confines of the plan and how the plan says every recommendation should be vetted through what it lists as actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies. And those are like the little letters with a number you see under each goal. We're going to stick to that format for this review, but in the future, because it's recommended the city and the planning commission look at this every year just to make sure that we're in line with the goals of the community. We don't have to be so within the confines of the plan, if that makes sense, because we just did a bunch of heavy lifting this year. Okay, so the first goal of the land use section of the comprehensive plan is looking at manage the land resource as a strategic asset. So that includes revise zoning and development regulations to increase adaptability, revise administrative policy to increase the public's role in reviewing and evaluating land use and development policy, encourage multiple uses on individual parcels, particularly in the downtown core, and expand municipal services beyond existing municipal boundaries only as a condition of annexation. So when the community met in 2013 and this went through in 2014, those were the 4 components of this first goal. And now we're going to move on to showing you examples that relate to those actions, synergies, policies, and contingencies that were outlined. So to meet the A2, the action 2 requirement, we did show that state that the small boat harbor was improved in 2014. We do think that the boat haul out could be improved to increase income and or expand employment in marine related fields. The city has been unable to leverage a key waterfront parcel in a win-win relationship with private enterprise. So that was a goal the community identified that we haven't been able to meet yet. The city has explored fuel sales and renegotiated the lease with Soldovia Fuel and Lube. The city also secured a grant to construct the value-added building in order to support fishing / marine support services. And so that was an example of how we met A5, action number 5. Improvements could be maintained regarding the city's surface transportation network. So that means that we still have some work to do on our surface transportation network, which I believe is referring to our road system. The historic boardwalk needs maintenance and improvements that could help it for water access to enhance public enjoyment of the slough. The Scenic Byways Pavilion, which is the Gateway Pavilion, we were able to construct that, and a volunteer effort will hopefully be arranged to ensure its maintenance. Outside Beach, Wilderness Park, the Otterbahn Trail, and Rocky Ridge Trail are maintained by volunteer effort in order to retain and extend their value. That's action number 11. For action number 12, Jackaloff Dock needs rehabilitation and improvement. Council has budgeted for the improvements of the dock in fiscal year 2022. The city is working on a land use management plan this year. The city has not made recent land acquisitions in order to protect iconic local attractions and open spaces. Both the city and the Soldovia Chamber of Commerce recognize community volunteers, so that was something that was recommended to be accomplished under this goal, is how we recognize our volunteers in the community. The Soldovia City Council is working on a land use management plan in 2021. The city zoning code has been updated, and that's Title 18, and the Soldovia Planning Commission totally made that happen in conjunction with the city clerk. So that was a huge success. The city has limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services, but staff are available to assist in meetings. So that was a policy that was recommended in the comprehensive plan, that the city finds a way to encourage development, but we're very much a skeleton crew. So we rely on people coming to us to ask for help, but that still shows that we're hopefully meeting the intent of that fourth policy. The city could look into exploring incentive-based tax structures. So that was based on policy number 5. The city relies on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues, as staff have limited capacity to proactively do this. Once the city is aware of an enforcement issue, action is taken. For P7, policy number 7, the city has limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. So that means that if there was an effort to have like another SURSA, which is the recreational service area. So everyone pays, I think it's 0.75 mils that goes into a pot for funding recreation throughout the whole area of Soldovia, but not just the city of Soldovia. If we wanted to have another annexation effort like that, where we charge another service, we're in very limited capacity to make that happen, but it is something that the comprehensive plan asks us to consider. We do have a mutual aid agreement with Barbara Heights Volunteer Fire Department, as well as an agreement with the borough and the Soldovia Recreational Service Area for the management of the SOC. And we also have an agreement with the Troopers for Public Safety. So that's showing our partnerships with outside agencies to leverage the city's limited capacity to provide public services. The city could work on improving the historic preservation and cultural heritage of Soldovia. So that was something in reference to policy recommendation number 9. The city's membership with SOS assists the city with environmental risk reduction, and the city has made a lot of progress on removing derelict boats in 2019. And I believe we just have 2 more slides before we go to the ranking of the commissioners on how the city is done with goal number 1, which is the managing the land resource as a strategic asset. So in our last 2 slides here, for synergy number 4, it shows that the city has an easement with the University of Alaska for the Rocky Ridge Trail, which could assist in enhancing backcountry access, because that synergy is saying that the community should be looking at ways we can improve hiking and outdoor recreation to get into the mountains more. Soldovia does not have a comprehensive tourism strategy, and that was something that the comp plan recommended we look into. We also do not have a collaborative economic strategy. And that was another thing that the comp plan recommended. Well, the city will continue to work with the borough to enhance available land data and update maps, but little to no progress has been made on correcting property surveys. So that was something recommended under synergy number 10, is looking at how we can improve the accuracy of property boundaries in our community. So we still have some work to do on that. The city has not explored new accommodations and housing, including rentals and affordable units to serve local needs, as well as flexible models that increase visitor capacity year-round. So this is saying that, you know, what efforts has the city made towards increasing housing in the community so that people can move here easier than what we currently have. And so we haven't made progress or explored that per what the comprehensive plan asks us to do. And then our last slide of the contingencies associated with this goal. One of them asks, what have we done to have emergency preparedness at the city? So the city is a supporting member of the Soldovia oil spill response nonprofit. We also work with the Borough Office of Emergency Management for emergency preparedness. And the city itself aspires to have monthly staff meetings on emergency response. And we actually had one, our first and only one so far, on tsunami preparedness. And then the tsunami alarm went off last week. So it was great to have gone through a meeting where we could have a refresher on tsunami response. So that was great that we had done that. We have not explored options for a robust new community system, and I'm not exactly sure what that meant when it was in the comprehensive plan. But as far as I know, we haven't looked into a new community system. There also has been little to no progress on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. That was something the comprehensive plan asked for. There has not been enough of a demand for regional road connections. And that was listed as contingency number 4. And there has not been enough of a demand for progress regarding the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. And lastly, the city has not explored options for establishing a local energy cooperative or utility, but the city does sponsor a letter of support to the Soldovia Fuel and Lube to assist in lowering the cost of fuel through their participation in the State of Alaska Bulk Fuel Loan Program. So those are some examples of how we've tried to meet the actions, policies, contingencies, and synergies of this first goal. And so now it's up to the commissioners to rank based on those 4 components of this goal, how the city of Soldovia or the Soldovia community has done on accomplishing those objectives. So if you take a couple minutes, we'll check back in and get your scores. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have if you want to drill down into the specifics as well.
So the boat haul out could be improved to increase income or expand employment in the marine related fields. Is that the Church Beach haul out? Is that what we're talking about? What haul out are we talking about?
There's a storage yard
Mhm.
behind kind of, you know, where the buzz is down at the
Yes.
other end of it. There's a
Okay.
storage
Oh,
yard.
that's the haul out you're talking about?
Yeah,
then?
that's
Okay.
the boat hot storage and
I thought you
then,
were talking about ramp or.
Yeah.
Okay. And all those boats in there, they're all claimed by somebody or there's all,
yeah, for the most part, there's a
Okay.
couple we're still working on, but the harbor master was able to do a really big project just in the last, what, I think year and a half ago.
2019.
2019, to remove over a dozen boats and have them, you know, destroyed and moved to the landfill. So
gotcha.
working on cleaning it up.
So far, there's nobody else from the public who has signed in, right? So we don't really have to worry about public discussion.
McKee waterfront parcel and a win-win relationship, which parcel we're talking about there?
It's just saying in general, so like,
Just in general?
like
Okay.
the value added building, for
Gotcha.
example, it's still empty and unfinished, so there was a lot of potential there, but
Yes.
didn't actually come to fruition.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. I'll work it.
So to, just to touch on this, so for example, the first one where it asks for a rating of 0 to 5 for the revised zoning and development regulations to increase adaptability. That could, a great example of the city meeting that is the updates made to Title 18.
Title 18.
And so the city did make a significant investment in trying to improve the ways that it oversaw development through the municipal code, through our local law. So that could be an example from all of the, and you can see that hefty list of recommendations the comp plan wants you to think about before you
Yes.
actually rate yourself. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry if it's a lot of information, but that's just what the comprehensive plan demands. So we're trying to meet that during
Sure.
our first review, but that's an example. Or like, encourage multiple uses on individual parcels, particularly in the downtown core. So the city has not explored different tax structures to help bring in development, or I'm trying to think of when, let's see.
Yes, but they did update the commercial business district from commercial marine district. So it
Perfect.
specifies even more that those businesses, it's always been specified, but it more clearly stated that for the commercial business district, you have to have a business. You can't just live in a
Perfect.
building.
So that's a great, right there. That's a great example of something that shows that the city has in some ways encouraged multiple uses on individual parcels. But there's still some things according to the comprehensive plan that we could implement that we haven't yet.
So other meetings, we've gone around and asked every commissioner for their scores, and that's, do I do that?
It's up to you. We've done it both ways. So if
Oh, okay.
you're more comfortable with me asking for
Sure.
each commissioner's score, I can do that. Otherwise, you will. And maybe I'll start. I wasn't on. Sorry, I'll reiterate. It's up to you. So if you're more comfortable, I'll go ahead and ask, or else you can. And we can start with Roger if you'd like. Are you okay? Mr. Forsberg?
Okay, the first one I gave a 5 because of all that work we done on the Title 18 stuff. And then I gave a 4, and then a 3, and a 1 on the bottom. I didn't really understand only as a condition of annex, so we can't expand our services unless we make the city bigger, right? Is that what that means?
So Commissioner Forsberg, if I could add my interpretation, what I think it's saying is that, for example, right now we have the SURSA, and the SURSA includes all of Soldovia in city limits, outside of city limits. And what this last statement is getting at is we don't want to offer too many services like how we pay for SURSA without just going overall annexation, if that makes sense. So, you know, we're already stretching law enforcement by doing it outside of city limits and inside city limits. Next, we don't want to have our city clerk run meetings outside of city limits for like a certain fee, or come up with another voluntary annexation level without just annexing overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. Yep.
Ms. Ryan?
Okay, I gave a 4 to the first one because I didn't know about how it increased adaptability. And then 3 for the second one, 1 on the multiple use, although Maybe I'll raise that now that I heard that one example. I'll match Rogers there on a 3 and a 0 on the bottom one.
Okay, and Mr. Dietrich?
I give 4 on number 4. Excuse me, on number 1, I give a 4 on number 2, a 3 on number 3, and a 1 on number 4. So yeah, I didn't understand the expand either. So I know something had been done about it, so that's why I gave it a 1. So the multiple uses, I understood that. I think that could be used a little bit more, that's for sure, because we need to maximize everything we can in town, for revenue for sure. So anything we can do. So.
Great. All right, so that was goal number 1. And there's 7 goals in this section. So we're going to move on to the second goal. And if, I hope you don't mind if I need to drink some water or take a cough drop, but we're going to get through it. And this is, I would say, one of the more important sections of the comprehensive plan review, because it's going to help guide the Soldovia City Council's review and development of a land use management plan. So your ratings will go before the council and will help the community. So goal number 2 for land use is develop and sustain an active town center. And so this goal has 4 components as well. The first one is manage city-owned waterfront property to the best strategic advantage. The second is retain a working waterfront nature with industry and commercial uses along the water's edge between Airport Avenue and Iliamna Street. The third is permit some degree of waterfront residential use, but limit it to upper floors in commercial and industrial districts. And then the last one is emphasize retail, dining, public open space, and accommodation uses in the town center along Main Street, particularly between Fulmer Avenue and English Drive. And so now we're going to go through all those actions, policies, contingencies, and synergies associated with this goal. And this goal has those 4 main components that the commissioners will rate at the end of the presentation. Okay. So the city dock can still maintain ferry services, which is great because it helps bring revenue into the community, and it also ensures that we have a working waterfront. So that meets action number 1. Again, the small boat harbor was improved in 2014, so it shows that we're still actively trying our best to maintain that important community asset. The boat haul out could be improved to increase income and or expand employment in the marine related fields. The city has been unable to leverage a key waterfront parcel and a win-win relationship with private enterprise. So again, like Commissioner, is it Dietrich?
Yes.
Okay, like Commissioner Dietrich was asking about, we still haven't been able to leverage one of our waterfront parcels to bring in private enterprise on city property. So we're still working on that. We have explored fuel sales and renegotiated the lease with the Soldovia Fuel and Lube. And so we also secured a grant to construct the value added building in order to support fishing and marine support services. But again, that building hasn't come into full fruition yet. Improvements could be maintained regarding the city's surface transportation network. So that's action number 8. And again, the historic boardwalk needs maintenance and improvements could be made for water access to enhance public enjoyment of the slough. We constructed the Scenic Byways Pavilion, and then we'll have a volunteer effort hopefully happen this year to ensure it's being maintained. The city is working on a land use management plan this year. The city has not made recent land acquisitions in order to protect iconic local attractions and open spaces. So that was something that the comp plan recommended, was that the city purchase or somehow acquire land that's known throughout the community to be icons. So we haven't made progress on that. We do have a volunteer recognition program. The city, both the city and the Soldovia Chamber of Commerce recognize volunteers. The city does that through mayoral proclamations. And the Chamber of Commerce, of course, has their Soldovian of the Year. Again, the council is working on a land use management plan. the city updated Title 18. We have, as the city, very limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services, but we still help interested parties who come to us through meetings on how they can make their developments happen. We could look into, or still need to look into, exploring incentive-based tax structures to encourage development in the community. And again, we rely on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues, since staff have limited capacity to do that. We could improve work regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage. That was policy number 9. The city consistently advocates for sustainable ferry system through state delegation and advocacy through the Alaska Municipal League. So what that's saying is that we're, of course, as the city, proactively reaching out to our local state leaders, so Senator Stevens and Representative Stutes, saying, please make this ferry happen, please make it happen so that it reflects what Soldovia needs, which is year-round service. And then we also contact the Alaska Municipal League, which is a nonprofit that many municipalities throughout Alaska are a member of, and so they leverage our voice at the legislature. So we are meeting synergy number 1 for sure. We have not made any progress, or little to no progress, on the Soldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jackaloff Bay Road upgrade and multi-use trail. We do support, so this was one of the synergies, Synergy 5 in the comp plan was talking about what the city could do to actively support youth and family. So because the city manages the SOC, the Sea Otter Community Center, that's a way that we help meet that goal. Again, we do not have a comprehensive tourism strategy or a collaborative economic strategy. We continually work with the borough to enhance available land data and update our maps, but we haven't made progress on correcting property surveys community-wide. Again, we haven't explored new accommodations and housing, including rentals and affordable units to serve local needs. So that's a Synergy 11. We again haven't made little to no progress has been made on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. And I believe the intent for that, I'm just remembering what Commissioner Carluccio said, was trying to get larger industrial vehicles out of the center of town. And so I think that's what that waterfront truck route and secondary airport route was about, is how do we get Main Street to be less, what's the word I'm thinking of, congested, less congested with industrial uses. And then there hasn't been enough demand for progress regarding the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. And again, the city has not explored options for establishing a local energy cooperative or utility, but we do help the Soldovia Fuel and Lube through the bulk fuel loan program. And that is it for goal number 2. So again, goal number 2 was develop and sustain an active town center. What you see before you, you'll be rating those 4 components of that goal. And I'm happy to go back to any example that was provided in order to take into consideration the recommendations that the comp plan wanted us to look at.
So has anything been done as far as regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage? I'm sorry, I missed that one. Not much.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I mean, I like that stuff. Alaska has an amazing history, and definitely maintaining that and being proud of, especially Soldovia has such an amazing history. Just reading up on that, it's anything we can do to help that. 1 would help the community, and 2 would draw tourists, because people, when they come here, they like to see I know they like to go to the SVT building and go through that, and anything we can provide as that signs, designated trails. I know there's a graveyard down at the end. I don't know if that's something that could work on. I mean, anything like that. I don't know. So
That's an interesting consideration. I don't think we've considered that the cemetery, there has been a lot of work on the cemetery with new signage and
Yeah.
dirt work, and they've actually made great progress out there.
And I
There's
know
still
there's-
more to be done.
I know there's an old one down by the Chissises too. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is. I think that a lot of the I don't know, the people, the residents of the cemetery were moved at one particular time to the
Oh,
main
so there's
cemetery
there's
now.
no graves left in there. That's just.
I
okay.
think there's still a few, and it's
Okay.
still
Yeah.
it's still city land because of that, but I do believe that they tried to move most of the residents to the big cemetery, but I could find out more about that as well.
Thank you.
Right, and that land we didn't need to acquire because we already have it.
Mhm,
So the cemetery is already city property, but
mhm.
I believe there was interest in the city acquiring perhaps property surrounding the church or I'm trying to think what else I've heard about, but we haven't actually made a land acquisition for the sake of protecting
Sure.
an asset before, but the city has made a lot of effort in signage, directing people to various parts around the community. There's a historic boardwalk of Bay Street, which we need to maintain, but that's an icon that we own already.
Yes.
But yeah, we could work, and it doesn't have to just fall all on the city, but the city could partner with other organizations to promote those aspects of the community
Absolutely.
better.
And then if you're ready, I could start with Mr. Forsberg again.
Okay, I rated the first one 3, 2, 3, and a 4. And get some comments on that. On the last one, it seems like there's been a lot of at least restaurants opening up the last couple, 3 years, which I think is it's a good thing. You know, that's what, when people hop on that tour boat, that's when they get to their destination, that's the first thing they want to do is eat. So I think that's eat a little bit and then walk around. So that's what all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Forsberg. And we can do Miss Ryan.
I rated the first one 0, then a 1, and then 4 and 4. And I'm 0. I've got a kind of a problem with the little shacks out there by the harbor that aren't rented yet, but I don't think that's a very strategic use of that land. And there's no industry on the waterfront. I mean, I don't know how much the city can push for that, but we don't have a whole lot of industry period in Seldovia. Like they used to have the packing plants and stuff out there. I think that's what comes to my mind. I guess. Yeah, and it looks like the other ones are being done well.
Thank you. And Mr. Dietrich.
Number 1, I gave a 1. Number 2, I gave a 1. Number 3, I gave a 3. Number 4, I gave a 4. So I agree with Allison. I'd love to see more businesses downtown, commercial use. If we got empty buildings that need to be used, we need to think of something. This town needs revenue, anything we can do to bring businesses for jobs. Children's futures here, anything like that to help the community as far as revenue and something to do. So absolutely, I think that needs to be worked on. Residential use, that's just on the top of the restaurants, right? Okay, that's about it. That's what I want to think of. So.
Yes, and part of the commercial business, when they amended the commercial business district and updated it from the commercial marine is they did include a long-term residential permit so that 10% of the properties in that district, which is the district along the waterfront, and there's about 30 properties. It's about 3 properties exactly in that district can apply for a long-term residential permit with the city, so that instead of operating a nightly rental, they can operate a year-round rental to offer more housing for the, because the realization of the council was that while housing is needed, they also don't want the waterfront to be all housing.
Yes.
So how to have both of those efforts coincide. So they did put a cap on it, that there could be some long-term residential rentals, but not just everybody could do it.
All right, we're on to goal number 3. Implement land use designations. So this goal has again 4 components. Clarify land use and development standards, making them consistent with land use policy. Consistently enforce zoning requirements. Make the permitting process transparent. And solicit public input on city decisions related to land use and development. So here are those actions, contingencies, policies, and synergies associated with that. So again, for action 9, we're talking about the historic boardwalk. It still needs maintenance, and there could be improvements made so that the public can access the slough more. The city is working on a land use management plan this year. The city has not made recent land acquisitions in order to protect local iconic attractions and open spaces. The city does not have a watershed annexation and control plan. Council is again working on a land use management plan. The city's zoning code has been updated. The city has limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services. The city could look into exploring incentive-based tax structures. The city relies on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues, as staff have limited capacity to proactively do this. Once the city is aware of the enforcement issue, action is taken. The city has limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. The city needs to improve work regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage. The city has not been in touch with the state regarding an emergency landing lighting system for the airport. The city will work with the Kenai Peninsula Borough to enhance available land data and update maps, but we have not made that much progress on correcting property surveys. Again, there has not been enough demand for progress regarding the Seldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. And that is that for that goal. So again, happy to go back to any of those examples. And as mentioned, there could be more that you know about that you can offer for discussion that we haven't touched on tonight yet. And I could, while you're reading this goal, I could add here that in general, the city council, from what I've seen, is very proactive at asking the public what the public thinks about decisions regarding land use and development. So for example, when Seldovia Space was still a clinic, the city went out to the community and asked, do you want this to become rental space or businesses, or would you like to see the city offices moved there? And the community gave input. So the city does proactively try to reach out to the community, as well as making the permitting process transparent. We do our best with the fee schedule to outline what the fees are associated with permits. Our city clerk is also our planning and permitting guru and meets with people who have questions to ask how to make a particular development happen. And then we do, once we're made aware of enforcement issues, use the Seldovia Municipal Code in order to address them. And then we do also refer to the code for the land use and development standards so that we're consistent with policy. That's just from my perspective. Not based just on those examples, but from what I've seen so far here.
And if we're ready, do we want to shake it up this time? Do you want to go first, Miss Ryan?
Sure. I've been changing mine as it listening to things. So I gave a 3 to the first and the second and 4s to the other two. I guess I was not confused about that zoning requirements, which is what you do when somebody applies for a permit, right? And you go through and do that. I already participated in that. So yeah, I had to make that clear a little bit. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Forsberg?
I gave a 5, 4, 4, and a 3. And I gave high numbers because of the work we did on Title 17 and 18. I mean, things are pretty well clarified now. If you look it up, you might run into some problems, but a lot of stuff is a lot clearer than it was a couple years ago. That's all I got.
And Mr. Dietrich?
I gave 4s across the board. I mean, it seems like there's been some work done on those, so I like the one to solicit public input. I mean, are meetings attended fairly regular? How long do those?
So it depends on what the topic is. For instance, a conditional use permit or a variance will send out notice within 300 feet radius
Okay.
of that. Like we had the variance for the communication tower. So everybody within a 300-foot radius was sent notice. And then it's also posted, that notice is posted for however many weeks prior to the meeting when it's gone out to the public at the post office and at the city board. And then for regular meetings, for planning commission, we post notice 5 days before, but the calendar is up year round of when those meetings will take place. And then the council meetings, we started implementing this year a tentative agenda. So that goes out 2 weeks before, or 10 days before, I should say, and then 5 days before the
So that people have
real
plenty of
agenda
time
comes
to
out.
see what's going on. So I do like that. So
Yeah.
that's good. Now, if people decide to say something or not, that's up to them. So if they have the opportunity. That's good.
Okay, goal number 4, again, this is for the land use section of the comp plan. Provide a network of quality dedicated public spaces. So of this goal, we have strategically locate public open spaces to enrich community character and enhance the pedestrian experience. Encourage local volunteer activity to maintain public open spaces. And then keep open spaces near the town center small and interesting, in keeping with the community's character. Let's see those examples. So our small boat harbor, that definitely has some community character with those murals and the wood carvings that are around. And in general, we have been working to improve it to keep it up to snuff. Improvements could be maintained regarding the city's surface transportation network. Our historic boardwalk needs maintenance and improvements. The Scenic Byways Pavilion, we constructed that, which was a big success, and we'll hopefully have a volunteer effort to maintain it this year. The Outside Beach, Wilderness Park, Audubon Trail, and Rocky Ridge Trail are maintained with a volunteer effort, as well as, I should say, some city staff effort in helping with trash collection and maintenance of the vegetation. But the Audubon Trail and the Rocky Ridge Trail definitely have dedicated volunteers that go through to help clear those trails. We are working on a land use management plan this year, and that could touch on the public spaces that the city has. We haven't made recent land acquisitions to protect local attractions and open spaces. The city and the Chamber of Commerce recognize volunteers. We have limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. We do have a mutual aid agreement with Barbara Heights Volunteer Fire Department, as well as the agreement with the borough and the Soldovia Recreation Service Area for the SOC, as well as an agreement with the troopers for the public safety contract. We could improve work regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage. There has been little to no progress on the Soldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jog upgrade and multi-use trails. We have an easement with the University of Alaska for the Rocky Ridge Trail, which would assist in enhancing backcountry access. We help manage the SOC, which actively supports youth and family. Again, we do not have a comprehensive tourism strategy or a collaborative economic strategy. We work with the borough on land data, but we still need to work on property surveys. We have not explored new accommodations and housing, including rentals and affordable units to serve local needs. But I'm sure there would be interest from the council in supporting those efforts if there was somebody that came to Soldovia and wanted to work on exploring housing in Soldovia. And lastly, there's been little to no progress on the waterfront truck route. There has not been enough demand for regional road connections. And there has not been enough demand for progress regarding the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. So that was a part of goal number 4 of providing a network of quality dedicated public spaces. So please rate the following 3 components on a scale of 0 to 5.
Tell me a little bit about the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control.
I wish I could, Commissioner, but I myself am not fully certain what that is, but I know that it's not an active project that we're working on.
I hadn't heard of that one. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's like that barge that's out there, Doc, is that what they're saying? You could tax them somehow for using the water? You know, if they're dock, I don't know, if that came to my mind.
Here, how about-
Maybe a fee.
Let's do this. So water control. I'm gonna look up in the comprehensive plan to see what that is. So here's what that contingency is. It's contingency 5. And so the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control, the comp plan says for economic and public safety reasons, it may be in Soldovia's interest as shipping traffic expands in the North Pacific to explore annexation and other means of controlling and or taxing activities in these strategic local waterways where the city owns local infrastructure. So I see that as Jackaloff Dock, the city having control over resources like AK LNG, if that were to go in and Homer's Harbor expands to help accommodate the shipping barges coming through up to Nikiski, perhaps there could be a reason for the city of Soldovia to have more of a presence on that side of the community.
Mhm.
Are there docking fees or anything out there in Jackaloff? I'm just-
Not yet.
I mean, that's one way. I mean, $5 a night, $10 a night, I don't know, something.
Like there's here in town. Yes.
And
Because if
then-
you have to maintain that dock, it's an expensive structure. So.
Yeah, the city council is in discussion right now, actually, about the dock. That was at their last meeting on Monday. They had a special meeting that was that Jackaloff Dock was part of the discussion because they just are recently working with DNR to obtain the tidelands, even though they were granted the ownership of the dock itself. Tidelands didn't go with it. So now the city is going through the process of getting the tidelands, which they needed. in order to be able to charge fees for moorage at that dock. And the council is certainly having a lot of discussions about what the future is for that dock.
Yeah,
And then when it says waterfront truck route and secondary airport route, what it's saying is that Main Street has a lot of competing uses and several bottlenecks. So the community only also has one bridge connecting Main Town with many essential functions east of the slough. So it would be advantageous to extend Airport Avenue or a new road north beyond the slough's end and connect east and south to the east end of Main Street, taking an advantage of existing section lines and roads to create a functional bypass that better supports industrial and marine oriented areas. But we haven't made any progress on that. And then regional road connections, it just says that population growth, resource development, and reduced marine transportation options could all necessitate connecting up and extending larger regional road networks. But so far, our population has not expanded to merit that yet. All right.
Ready? Great.
Miss Ryan?
I gave Forrest all of them. The first one, I don't know that any new land's been acquired, but it seems like things are pretty well, there's a kind of one here and then a few blocks down another one. So they're already kind of located nicely that way. And they're small, so that's the last one. Definitely have a lot of volunteers out there.
Mr. Dietrich?
I gave 4, 4, and a 3. I mean, I probably could bump the third up to 4, but I don't know, just
Yeah.
maybe just cleaning up them a little bit, maybe some painting and some stuff. But I love the carvings and all that stuff. I think I agree. Keep it small. It's a small little town. It's the easier advantage to. And I always see people kind of hanging out in the public spaces too, which is nice. It's a place where we go.
Mr. Forsberg?
I gave it a 2, a 4, and a 4. And the first one there, sure, on Main Street, it sure would be nice to have a good walking path, sidewalk, and maybe resurface that, the whole road there, because after all these water leaks that were fixed, now that road is pretty beat up. On the second one, I was gonna comment on, I like the flower gardens. I'm almost sure that's all volunteer, or a lot of it's volunteer maintenance and planting and all that. I think that looks really good. And that's about all I had, I guess.
All right, we're going to move on to goal number 5. Enhance, maintain, and protect scenic resources. So this goal has 3 components: increase and monitor public access to scenic resource areas, minimize negative impacts to the community's livability and environmental setting, and minimize negative impacts to tourism. So again, we've made improvements to our boat harbor. We could improve the city's surface transportation network. Our historic boardwalk could be maintained better. The Scenic Byways Pavilion was constructed, and that was a huge success for the community, and then hopefully we'll have volunteers maintain it. Our trails, including Outside Beach, the Wilderness Park, Otterbahn Trail, and the Rocky Ridge Trail, are maintained by volunteers. The Jackaloff Dock needs rehabilitation and improvement, but council has budgeted for improvements of the dock in the FY 2022 budget. The city is working on a land use management plan. The city has not made recent land acquisitions to protect local iconic attractions and open spaces. The city and the chamber do recognize community volunteers. The city does not have a watershed annexation and control plan. Again, the council's working on a land use management plan. The city did update its zoning code. The city has limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services. The city relies on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues since staff have limited capacity to proactively do this. The city has limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. The city does have a mutual aid agreement with Barbara Heights Volunteer Fire Department, as well as other agreements that are in place. The city could improve work regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage. The city has a membership with the Soldovia Oil Spill Response Nonprofit, and that helps the city with environmental risk reduction. And then the city also made a lot of progress on removing derelict boats in 2019. The city has not been in touch with the state regarding an emergency landing lighting system for the airport. There's been little to no progress on the Soldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jackaloff Bay Road upgrade. The city has an easement with the University of Alaska for the Rocky Ridge Trail, and that assists in enhancing backcountry access. The city assists in the management of the SOC, which supports youth and family. Again, the city does not have a comprehensive tourism strategy or a collaborative economic strategy. The city will continue working with the borough to update land data, but still no community-wide progress on the property surveys. We have a variety of relationships that help us with emergency preparedness with the borough as well as with SOS. We have not explored options for a robust new community system. And again, little to no progress has been made on the waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. And there has not been enough demand for progress regarding the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. So those are the actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies associated with goal number 5, which is enhance, maintain, and protect scenic resources. So rate away, and we will check back in with you in a minute. And just in case the commissioners were interested, I pulled up what the comprehensive plan means when it says comprehensive tourism strategy. And it says that the city should consider creating a plan to maximize tourist visits and satisfaction with marketing guidelines and resources to enhance collective marketing. And then as far as a collaborative economic strategy, it says to work with the Soldovia Native Association, the Soldovia Village Tribe, the state, and local residents to develop a coordinated set of strategies for enhancing local income streams, incubating new businesses, meeting local needs locally, enhancing skills, and helping residents take better advantage of Soldovia's assets and setting. And if the commissioners are ready, we can get your scores.
Mr. Forsberg?
I had 3s all along. Let's see. You know, I think there is, we are increasing access to these scenic areas. I walked up, I didn't walk the whole thing, but the Rocky Ridge, somebody's been up there trimming it all out. That looks good. And like I said, I think the negative impact to tourism walking down that street is, if it's dry out, it's dusty, and that's not a positive, that's a negative. So if we could control the dust and stuff, that would even help a lot, I think. That's what I got there too.
Ms. Ryan?
I also rated, oh no, I have a 2 on the bottom one. 3, 3, and a 2. But my only real comment here is the last 2 are both minimizing negative impacts rather than enhance the positive situation. It's all just trying to not to make it worse. I just like to state things a little more positively.
And Mr. Dietrich?
4, 3, and 3. I agree with the road here being congested with the tourists coming up and down the street. That is definitely a safety thing. I've seen kids ripping across. That comes to mind when I brought that up. Maybe you can just paint a line, similarly, a pedestrian walkway or something, at least to keep it to one side or the other side of the road. Because there's been several times that I've seen kids almost get clobbered by vehicles. They do not like little kids that like that. They just go right across it. I thought it was sometimes. And maybe post a speed limit, maybe 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. So it's something.
All really great points. So 2 more goals left with the section of land use. So goal number 6, provide adequate housing. And this goal has 3 components: review zoning and development regulations to ensure there are no barriers that are preventing creation of low to moderate income housing. Identify parcels for the city or housing authority to purchase and or dedicate to facilitate housing development, and ensure zoning allows upper floor residential uses in the town center and waterfront areas. So that should sound familiar to the commissioners after tonight's discussion. So the actions, synergies, policies, and contingencies for this goal. The city is working on a land use management plan. We have not acquired property to protect iconic local attractions and open spaces. We do recognize community volunteers. The city has updated its zoning code. We have limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services. The city could look into exploring incentive-based tax structures. The city relies on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues. The city has limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. The city does have mutual aid agreements with other organizations for public safety, as well as for the SOC. The city will continue to work with the borough to enhance available land data, but we have not done a community-wide property survey effort. The city has not explored new accommodations and housing, including rentals and affordable units to serve local needs and flexible models that increase visitor capacity year-round. So those are the examples associated with this goal. And if I were just to verbally touch on them, since being here, the city has worked to update zoning so that there could be residential uses in the town center and waterfront areas. The city is working on the land use management plan, and that's a great opportunity if there were to be a large tract of land that the city would be interested in partnering, doing a public-private partnership for a developer to come in and put more housing in. That could be an opportunity for the city to recognize that. So the land use management plan we're working on would be very helpful for that goal. And then I think that it would be helpful if the city did look through its code to see, is there a way that we could be inadvertently deterring low to moderate income housing in the community? Or at least look through the code and think, how could we, to add to what Commissioner Ryan was saying of putting it in the positive, how could we encourage low to moderate income housing more through our code? Because right now I'm not sure if there is a way we address that.
so expensive to live here as it is. I mean, yeah. Get people here to vote, not already gonna come in. You think about duplexes, apartments, I mean, has anything been brought up as far as that?
As far as I know, but I've only been here for 8 months. The city, our financial standing right now isn't we're not in a position where we could ourselves as the city develop, but we could leverage resources like land, similar to what we did with the value added building where we were trying to leverage public property to encourage economic development.
Sure.
We could find a piece of raw land that we have and try to bring a developer in at a less than fair market value sale price or leasing in order to encourage housing, but we haven't had housing discussions really since I've been here.
Population's kind of been declining. But then there's the Solovia House, which is that just a private or organization?
I want to say that's the state, that's Cook Inlet Housing Authority,
Okay.
and or maybe even federally funded or parts of it, because you have to be at a certain income standard.
Right, yeah. So yeah, it is a kind of expensive place to live, but on the flip side, there's not a lot to spend your money on right here.
It's
So you,
That's, I mean, that is true. That's, it kind of balances itself out.
Yeah.
That's true.
and you don't have to spend a lot on driving around, so that.
Mm.
That's, I guess. It's very expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm losing volume here for some
I'm
reason.
sorry, I turned myself off when I was supposed to be turning my volume on.
Oh.
What is your rating for this focus area?
I gave it a 2, 3, and a 4. Zoning for the, yeah, like you say, I think as far as low and income housing, that's probably would have to be an area of apartments or something. So like you say, we don't have a whole bunch of cash for making that unless we got some grants and stuff. And then, yeah, the idea of residential use above the waterfront businesses, that's a good idea, because those business owners will have a place to live or rent or whatever too. So that helps that business quite a bit. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ryan?
I had a 2, a 0, and a 5. So I figured the last one was done through that recent zoning change, and yeah, it's not like there hasn't been any work on identifying a parcel.
And Mr. Dietrich?
I got a 2, 1, and a 4.
All right, we have one more goal to go on the land use section of the comprehensive plan. The last goal is scale development to its setting, and there's 2 components to this goal. Review zoning and development regulations to ensure the scale and type of development are compatible with neighborhood character, as well as consider design guidelines for the town center and inner neighborhoods to assist building designers in their efforts. So the actions, contingencies, policies, and synergies associated with this goal. Here are some of those examples. So again, improvements could be made or maintained regarding the city surface transportation network. The boardwalk could use some maintenance. The city is working on a land use management plan. We have not acquired land in order to protect iconic local attractions and open spaces. We have updated the zoning code. We have limited capacity to actively offer pre-development services. The city could explore incentive-based tax structures more. The city relies on the public to inform staff of enforcement issues since staff have limited capacity to proactively do this. The staff also have limited capacity to work through a voluntary service area annexation. Soldovia has multiple agreements in place for public safety as well as for recreational opportunities at the SOC. The city could improve work regarding historic preservation and cultural heritage. And the city has a membership with the Soldovia Oil Spill Response to help us with environmental risk reduction. And we have made a lot of progress on removing derelict boats. There's been little to no progress on the Soldovia Street, Anderson Way, Jackaloff Bay Road upgrade and multi-use trail. The city has an easement with the University of Alaska for the Rocky Ridge Trail to enhance backcountry access. The city does not have a comprehensive tourism strategy. The city continues to work with the borough on land data, but still needs to make progress on the property surveys effort. The city has not explored new accommodations and housing, including rentals and affordable units to serve local needs and increase visitor capacity year round. And again, little to no progress has been made on the waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. And there has not been enough demand for progress regarding the Soldovia Bay and Jackaloff Bay water control. And the city has not explored options for establishing a local energy cooperative utility, but we do assist the Soldovia Fuel and Lube through the bulk fuel loan program. So our last goal for land use are two components. Just in my quick review, it doesn't seem like we have design guidelines for the town center and inner neighborhoods. I don't think we do things like regulate what color you can paint your house or what materials you have to use in order to maintain that small town charm. And then I think that as long as a development that someone proposes through a permit is acceptable and meets the terms of our code, we don't really deny a development if it doesn't meet character, but looks like our city clerk has a comment on that.
I would just chime in that the development of the land use table, which just recently went through, I don't think you were involved yet, Ms. Ryan, when that went through, but Mr. Forsberg was, did assist or does assist with a more easily to read table of land uses per district. So I think that's helpful because there's consistency there on what uses are compatible with each zone. So that
Right.
may not be compatible necessarily. Well, I mean, and a lot of that discussion was, and can you have a boat storage in a residential zone, or can you have a housing complex in an industrial zone, and how to keep those neighborhood characters based on what they're zoned.
But as long as it meets whatever people are submitting, as long as it meets the code, it's still a permitted use. But that's the way that the city tried to at least do some protection of neighborhood character.
Right, correct.
Okay.
two on this last one.
So if everybody is ready, or are there any questions? Just let us know if they come up as we go. And then Ms. Ryan?
I gave a first one, the 4 and 0 for the design guidelines.
Mr. Forsberg?
I gave a 4. And it says consider the designs guidelines. I think we should, at least with building designers. I think that'd be helpful, keep everybody, for going too crazy building stuff. Right now it's just square footage and stuff but yeah, I think they should consider it. Guidelines.
And what did you score that one then?
I don't think they're doing it, so I guess a 1.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Dietrich?
I agree with it. It's your property, you should be able to do one on it, but with certain limitations, no extravagance, that's, I agree with that. No, gotta keep a little bit of control of what people do, because I do, this is historic town, it needs to look good.
And for the record, that was a 4 and a 1.
4 and 1.
Thank you.
Let's maybe take a 5-minute stretch break. Before we go to the next one.
Sure, can do. Call for a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
We'll be back in 5 minutes, Roger.
All right.
My dog has made herself. ready to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's doing. Huh? Ooh, okay. Okay.
All right, are we ready to get going with the second part?
Yeah, if Ms. Ryan wants to call it back to order.
Yes.
But you need your mic on.
We'll call the regular meeting, the Solovia City Planning Commission back to order
Mhm.
at 7:41. I don't know if that matters.
Yeah. And then I think we're moving on to item 3, as long as that works with you, Madam Chair.
Sorry about that. Yes. Item H3, City of Solovia 2014 Comprehensive Plan Review, Community and Human Resources. And I don't think there's anybody from the public in this room, there isn't, and on the screen. So then we'll go through the review again.
Okay.
Presentation.
Great. So this is the Community and Human Resources section of the 2014 Comprehensive Plan Review. And you've already heard the agenda and role for the meeting, as well as our assumption that this hasn't been reviewed since 2014. So it's been 7 years, basically. And then the hope that the Planning Commission will share your findings with the council at one of their future meetings. So without further ado, the first goal for the Community and Human Resources section of the comprehensive plan is establish effective partnerships. And there's 3 components: develop strategic partnerships that help address community needs, collaborate with the Soldovia Village Tribe to coordinate services and realize cooperative efficiencies, and recognize and help support community organizations and volunteer efforts for their critical role in enhancing community life. And a fun fact about this goal is that it applies to all actions, policies, synergies, and contingencies. And so the commissioners have already heard the majority of what those are. So rather than read through every single one and how it relates, I was thinking we could make this more of a dialogue. So I'm going to pull up those components of that goal and just share from my perspective and invite the city clerk to comment that as far as the first component of the goal of developing strategic partnerships that help address community needs. A very recent partnership that the city developed is a partnership with KBBI. So that way, when the power goes out or we don't have internet or cellular service, people can turn on the radio and KBBI can report information on emergency issues. Like the tsunami is a great example. They were really proactive in talking to the community about what was going on regarding the tsunami warning. So that's one strategic partnership. The city clerk has done amazing work strengthening the city's relationship with GCI and our telecommunications industries on ways that we can improve broadband as well as cellular service in Soldovia. So how can we get fast, reliable internet? So the city has been developing strategic partnerships there. As well as with HEA, our local utility company, having a community relations member know us by our first names and be able to text us when there's power outages and use the city Facebook to inform the community. So the city has definitely developed strategic partnerships. And also with the borough and the state of Alaska, COVID-19 did wonders for strengthening municipal coordination amongst our neighboring cities across the bay, as well as the borough and the state. So we've definitely developed a lot of strategic partnerships, as well as collaborating with SVT. SVT has led the way with the city and trying to work with agencies like GCI to improve telecommunications and broadband in Soldovia. I mean, they even have the survey that is going out right now to try and get the public opinion on that. And there's definitely a lot of ways in which SVT and the city can overlap in order to improve services with the community. And then recognize and help support community organizations and volunteer efforts. So the mayor, on behalf of council, recognizes volunteers through proclamations. That's one way of saying the flower gardens, for example. It may be in the very near future that the volunteer member that helps with those flower beds is publicly recognized. We publicly recognized Alaska Rural Water Association recently for helping the city identify our water leaks. They had a circuit rider who goes through various cities and tries to help rural communities with modern technology identify ways in which they can improve their water and wastewater system. So we recognized their circuit rider, Kevin Schoderman, who's helped Soldovia throughout the years. So there already is enough effort from the city in trying to work with organizations who help keep Soldovia the beautiful community that it is. So if the city clerk has any other things to add to that, please do.
I really think you covered it. I think a large portion of at least my day, very often a large portion of my day is in working with those relationships with the outside entities.
I mean, I think those are all great things to do for sure. HEA, as far as the only downfall I have on that one is about the generator. So I know that's like 1 out of 3 times it works when the power goes out.
Yes, and we do continue to partner with HEA for information. They attend the city council meetings regularly, about once a month after the last power outage. They attended with the meeting with a couple members of their crew that were on generation and from operations, the supervisor from the plant. And they did go through with the council and the public who were in attendance what those issues were. It sounds like there was multiple issues that compounded the length of the power outage. And I heard them state that even though they run through the generators once a month and test them, or that's their goal to go through, every time that something happens, it's something new. So they're always trying to, to make sure that that problem, this particular problem, of course, they want to make sure that never happens again. But that doesn't mean that something new won't come up again.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Forsberg, are you ready?
Yeah. I gave fours all along. I think you guys are, we're working on trying to make everything better. It's definitely it's a community effort. And I think we're doing a pretty good job on all that stuff. So I gave fours all along.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dietrich?
I gave 4, 4, and a 5. I agree. I think everybody's trying to kick in here and help, and things are being addressed. Whether it's changed or not, I think you guys are working hard to bring us the services we need. Just gotta keep hammering at it till get everything we need. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ryan?
5, 4, and 4. Read another 2 on that.
All right, moving right along. Goal number 2, cost effectively manage core public services. So retain consistent levels of service for core public services is one of the components of this goal. Expand and contract the level of city funding for non-core public services to meet growth and decline in community demand and respond to seasonal variations as appropriate. And again, the fun thing about this goal is it applies to everything. So rather than go through all the specifics, we'll just have a conversation on 3 of those components. So the city has continued to retain consistent levels of service for core public services. We're pretty bare bones at the city. There's not a lot of fat at all in terms of what we're able to provide. We essentially have the city has under 20 employees, but of those 20 employees, 7 are critical and basically represent individual departments within the city. So most cities have a crew of 2 to 5 in a department, but the city of Seldovia, it's like 1 or 1.5 or 2 people per department. So we have been retaining those levels of service. However, it's come at a significant expense to the city because we basically eroded away our savings or fund balances associated with all of those services. So the city is in somewhat of a deficit and trying to figure out how we can continue to maintain core public services. And so the Seldovia City Council has been having discussions on how we can reduce expenses, increase revenue, and possibly reorganize the city in some fashion. So we've been having those conversations recently. In terms of expanding and contracting the level of city funding for non-core public services, I would say we do not have non-core public services. Some things that are supplemental that the city does that still benefit the community, like the senior meals program. Someone could say that's a non-core city function, but it's grant funded. So it's not like it is coming out of the pockets of city. There's a very minimal city dollars that go into the senior meals program. So I would say overall, there really is no non-core public services at the city of Seldovia. And then responding to seasonal variations as appropriate. We do, for example, Public Works, there's a whole lot of water turn-ons that come when the summer hits and people are returning to their properties when they've been gone throughout the winter, spring and fall. However, it's based on our ability of having staff and capacity in order to continue doing that. So this year, for example, we did have enough capacity, but then we had staff turnover. So now we only have 1 staff member in that entire department. That's full time. So we do our best to respond to seasonal variations. Our harbor assumes a few seasonal harbor assistants to help the harbor master maintain a 8 to 8 time period for the harbor, but that is compromised if the city doesn't have enough funding to support those positions. So I'm happy to talk more on any of those components, but I would say that we are meeting them. However, the city is in a financially compromised state.
I was trying to figure out what the non-core, or what, what was core and what was non-core. And this, on page 37, it has this little chart. It's got the core services, then enterprise and synergy. And I don't know if those other ones are supposed to be the non-core. There's this little triangle, but
Let's see. What page is that on?
37.
Page 37. You could definitely say that. So quality of life, for example, beautification, trying to bring in grant funding for fun projects like the Gateway Pavilion. One could say that that is not an essential city function.
Yeah.
An essential city function is like water, sewer, the harbor, the city clerk for our meetings, the city manager to help run the city. But we don't really have, as a result of limited staff capacity and time and funding, the ability to stretch the city's limited resources to do things like that. So in my opinion, I don't think that there are, and you can see here where it says synergy, tourism and community events, arts, crafts, and historical preservation programs. Those are things where if the city had a really strong base, we could dream for those things. And in my opinion, I kind of view the comprehensive plan like a dream, where it's the city's
Yeah.
vision for the 10 to 20 years. But if you don't have a strong base, how can you accomplish your dreams?
So a lot of that is happening through volunteers.
Right.
And yeah, just initiatives by individuals. Should support that. You have the arts commission, there's the art board, whatever, that's a city sponsored group. So in some ways, it's making sure those things are happening, but it's not directly paying salaries for it.
That's a great point.
Okay, and then if you're ready, then we need a few more minutes. Okay, Miss Ryan?
I gave them all 4s. I guess I was thinking of those other kind of things for the non-core services.
Okay, Mr. Forsberg?
I gave 5, 5, and a 4. And I agree. I think the whole crew, the workers are doing a good job. I know there's people that got to go out the outside beach out there to clean up the the lavatories and stuff. It's you guys are spread out a lot, and we definitely appreciate it. The seasonal variations, the only complaint I would probably have is I know when it's snowing out, we're always kind of waiting for it to stop, and then it stops a little bit, and then pretty soon all that snow is just packed down, so it gets hard to move and stuff. But other than that, I think once they start moving that snow, it gets moved fast. So I commend the city workers for that.
Thank you. And Mr. Dietrich?
I give them all 4s.
Moving on to goal 3, meet emergency and medical needs locally. So this goal has 3 components: collaborate with the regional medical community to ensure adequate medical care is available in Soldovia. Collaborate with the Alaska Department of Transportation on airport maintenance and improvement opportunities, as well as collaborate with the South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area and Soldovia Village Tribe to coordinate services and realize cooperative efficiencies. So this did have specific recommendations in the comprehensive plan, including the city continues to maintain the multipurpose building to support the Soldovia City Public Safety, Medical, and Emergency Facilities. We're working on a land use management plan. We have a mutual aid agreement with Barbara Heights Volunteer Fire Department, an agreement with the borough and the SURSA for the SOC. And we also have an agreement with the troopers for public safety outside of city limits. We have a membership with the Soldovia Oil Spill Response Team. And we have not been in touch with the state regarding an emergency landing lighting system for the airport. We manage the SOC, which actively supports youth and family. And we do not have a collaborative economic strategy. The city of Soldovia and SVT are actively working together to secure state-of-the-art telecommunications for Soldovia. The city is a supporting member of the Soldovia Oil Spill Response Team. It works with the Borough Office of Emergency Management for emergency preparedness, and we aspire to have monthly staff meetings on emergency response. And there has been little to no progress made on a waterfront truck route and secondary airport route. And if I were to just touch on these verbally and invite the city clerk to do so as well. Collaborate with the regional medical community. I do know that similar to how police departments are in different cities, the volunteer fire and EMS departments do reach out to other communities for assistance or input, training opportunities. So there is already established relationships. We communicate with the hospital. So maybe that touches on the South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area, because our volunteers do reach out to the hospital as well as to SVT to coordinate services and realize cooperative efficiencies. And then as far as working with the state on airport maintenance, I'm not really aware of a city effort to work specifically on the airport, but the city does have a management or maintenance agreement with the state for working on state roads and who does this, the snow plowing in the winter and who does the sanding. So we do have an agreement with the state on improving roads within city limits. Is there anything to add on that, City Clerk Gagel?
Yes, I think the only thing that I would add is that and a part of that collaboration with DOT, and I think most recently when it happened, they were able to bring somebody from DOT in to Soldovia, but in the past, when they haven't had that opportunity to do that, they have leaned on the city to supply labor to at least grade the roads or, snow plow in the event that they don't have an employee, and vice versa. So that is a working relationship between the departments. The last one I find interesting, just the collaborate with South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area. I've definitely seen a lot of collaboration. As Rachel mentioned earlier, it was one advantage with COVID-19 is that we've all been a part of EOC, not EOCs, but a part of joint entity meetings, organization meetings. In fact, those are starting again. But the city of Soldovia, one thing to note is that the city of Soldovia is not a part of the South Kenai Peninsula Hospital Service Area. Years ago, I guess they voted and opted to not be a part of that. So residents outside of the city of Soldovia just recently, last year, I believe it was, voted to be included in that hospital service area, and their mill rate increased a small amount to be a part of it. But that's something that maybe that the city could consider or work on in the future to help support that service area. But we do collaborate with them.
ready?
Yeah, it looks like everybody's ready then. And why don't we start with Mr. Dietrich?
So I gave it a 4, a 3, and a 4. The 3 on the collaborate with ADOT. Being a prior aviator and rescue, I think it's imperative for safety wise, low visibility, rain, inclement weather. We do have lights on that runway that will definitely help getting aircraft in that need to, even helicopters in to help secure patients that can get out here in a timely manner. Because the weather, as we know, gets terrible here with the snow and the rain, sometimes in the fog, and it's can be very difficult. And also something like we might want to do, which would also aid in that, would get people down here training is the fuel barn out there. You could put gas in, like the rescue helicopters can refuel, they run low on gas. It's something to think about also. Because that was one of the things I used to do, was coordinate where all the fuel was, where you go, being down on the tip of the Kenai Peninsula, especially if somebody has to jump over to Kodiak or on the other side, they can come up from Homer, hit here or wherever, and they can always come back here and get gas. It's a safety thing. So it's just something to think about. So, but the lights definitely would help getting in during low visibility situations.
I appreciate that. Mr. Forsberg?
Excuse me. I gave a 4, 3, and a 3. And yeah, I think a lighting system down there, during the winter anyway, because it's dark here a lot, would really help. The population's getting older, everybody's getting sick and need to be med flighted out. And yeah, it'd be nice to see them. They have that insurance for the med flights, and it's really reasonably priced. I'd like to see that pushed a little bit more because that's comes in really good as far as insurance and stuff. I think that's about all I had on that.
Thank you. And Ms. Ryan?
I have 3, 2, and 3. And I had a hard time with this whole focus area because you obviously aren't meeting things locally if we're depending on the airport to get out of town all the time for things. I just blew me away that we needed to send somebody away for a shock, an anaphylactic shock, which is just an EpiPen. Simple, but we couldn't do that here in town. We had to ship them forward to home. So I think we need to improve our medical services availability here a little bit. Yeah. And the light issue there, as long as I can turn those lights off when they're not needed, I won't object. But living right across from the airport, I don't really want to see a big blazing field there.
They are able to do that. It's just clicking of the intercom system.
Yeah,
You can
I
turn it on
imagine.
and
I
turn it
would
off.
assume that.
And it
but
can even time out. You can have a timeout after 15 minutes.
maybe I could have the
Absolutely.
control. No.
You can get your own clicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, our last goal here. So goal 4 of the community and human resources. I'm sorry, I'm having a little brain fog remembering the full name of the section of the comp plan, but our 4th goal is serve broad public interests. So there's 3 components: encourage a common sense, pragmatic approach to providing services, encourage local volunteer activity to maintain public open spaces, and encourage transparency in every facet of municipal operations and management. And this goal applies to all actions, policies, and synergies and contingencies, so we can have it be more of an open conversation with myself and the city clerk, opening up the discussion. So I would say, as far as the first component of encouraging a common sense, pragmatic approach to providing services, I think the unveiling of the city's financial standing recently has made people think more within the realm of possibility. Can we afford this? And asking questions like, what budget do we have for this? How are we going to pay for this? Making the Seldovia City Council consider what services the city does provide, like Jackaloff Dock. If it needs maintenance, how are we going to make that happen? And how are we going to make it be sustainable? Because it's very easy for there to be a fixation on grants as being the solution, but grants are usually one-time influxes of funding. And then you have the reoccurring operating expense associated with things. So I think that the recent unveiling of the city's financial standing is encouraging a common sense, pragmatic approach and asking, is it fair that the city does all of these things? Or can there be more of a volunteer effort that helps pick up where the city doesn't have the capacity to make that service happen? Those, I forget, Commissioner Ryan, on that triangle, if it was saying the city's youth on charm and arts and
Yeah.
history, those are all wonderful things, but the city has to, in terms of a pragmatic approach, focus on water, sewer, harbor,
Right.
meeting all of the deadlines from the state for taxes or with the borough for taxes and paperwork. So then that bleeds right into encourage local volunteer activity to maintain public open spaces. So the city has been in conversation with the SOC and the Seldovia Recreation Service Area Board to see if they could get out of the building, out of the SOC building and onto city properties, helping maintain city trails and city parks. So that's been one effort that the city is currently exploring. And then I do think that we could create a page on our website. I know it's 21st century and that there's a lot of stuff on our website, but we could create a page on our website that says these are volunteer opportunities. If you're interested, please get a hold of the city. And so we could promote volunteerism even more at the city. And then encourage transparency in every facet of municipal operations and management. I can say, since I've been at the city, and I know since the city clerk and the former administrators have been at the city, it's definitely the bread and butter of local government, is ensuring that everything you do goes before the council, especially when it involves public dollars for input, giving the reasoning why everything happens or why a certain decision is made over another decision. It's a high priority for the city, especially referring to our code to make sure that what we're doing aligns with local ordinances and state law, to make sure that everything is working as it should, to build trust with the public on how their local government is running. So I am very confident, especially with the Facebook and our website and our flyers that we put out. We're constantly trying to think of ways that we can encourage more people to come to our meetings, read the packets, meet with their council members, and learn how the city is functioning. So I'm very confident that we are working to encourage the transparency in every facet of municipal operations and management. So I'm excited to hear your ratings. And does the city clerk have anything to add on those topics?
I would just add that I think that your suggestion of a volunteer page is fantastic, because that was one thing just in looking at this topic that I think that the city could improve on, is that encourage of local volunteer activity. Unfortunately, because of our limited capacity and the bare bones, it's really hard for us to be active as staff with encouraging volunteer efforts. And we're thankful that we have a community of volunteers that just willingly go out on their own and are self-driven. But that would be a great way to get involved, and certainly welcome feedback on other ways that the city can get involved without using too many city resources at this point that we don't have, to help encourage that effort. And then the last one with the encourage transparency, I think you covered that one really well. And we are always trying to solicit feedback, how we can do that better. I'm really thankful for the team that we work with, because I think that is a number one priority for all of the staff, is how transparent can we be with city operations? How, we want everybody to be involved, to understand the process. And sometimes it's hard because people don't understand the process. So, always looking for ways to improve that and make that better, because that's a really key part to our jobs.
Ready to rate?
Okay, Ms. Ryan.
I gave everything a 4, and I totally back you up on that thing about volunteer activity, because in the Forest Service where I worked my career was going through budget woes. they would always say, oh, you can get volunteers to do that. But I was at the lowest level in the organization on the ground, and it's a lot of work to organize and get volunteers to do things. But that's not the answer to everything. I know that, but it's really great. We have such a good community effort in that regard.
Mr. Dietrich?
I did the same thing for us across the board. When I grew with volunteers, it's a community. When I first got here, I noticed that everybody, I do the fire department, everybody, I carry the radio, I do this, I work in the garden, I do that. And like everybody has like 3 or 4 hats, which is pretty cool. And I know it is hard trying to set aside time because volunteer, maybe a pinup board or something like that. Future volunteer issues, you could just print out a piece of paper, stick it on a board and something like that. I know people use the Chatterbox. I know people use Facebook, and that takes a lot of time getting there posted and stuff. So I feel the pain. Doing all this stuff too, so it takes a lot of time, and then you got to do your job on top of that. So keep up the good work.
And Mr. Forsberg?
I gave 4s all across the board too. I do like the transparency of, if there's bad news, if we don't have enough money, that kind of stuff, everybody wants to know. Nobody wants those types of surprises that, everybody, the system's broke or whatever. So the more you can be out front with all that stuff, the better off we all are.
All right, and believe it or not, folks, that's it.
Yeah.
For those 2 sections of the comprehensive plan, and then we'll have one more section at your next meeting to review. I think it's environmental as the section name, and then we can talk about how the planning commission is going to bring forward the ratings to the Seldovia City Council, because the council has been waiting to hear from the planning commission on the review of the comp plan.
So we'll do that at the next meeting, figuring that out. All right, so now we're moving on to staff reports.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, okay.
So just as it reads on the agenda, we have issued 7 building permits to date for 2021. So that's pretty good. It's nice to see development around town. There are still 2 commission members needed, and advertisement is always ongoing. I did send out a new I renewed the advertisement this morning, hoping to solicit more interest in the commission. The city of Seldovia has received a variance application permit that is in the process of being reviewed. Potentially that hearing could be scheduled for Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, based on the review process, but we'll let you know more, because we're coming up on a deadline for when that needs to be sent out for public notice in order to make it to that meeting. Commission training. We had a training with the council today on the budget with our local government specialist, Jeff Congdon, and he was really informative. It was a great training for the council, but he's also willing to come and Zoom in and do a training with the commission on Title 17 and Title 18, which are our building and zoning codes, and then just the roles of the commission. So he can be available for that. And hopefully we can get a few more members and some interest and then get that date set. If not, we can just move ahead despite that. Ordinance 2114, which is amending Title 17 and Title 18 building permit process, was enacted by council on July 12th, 2021. So yay, good job, commission, for referring that back up to recommending that back up to the council. I put a note on here to see the attached updated building permit, and I apologize because now I'm realizing I did not include that in this packet. I can include it in the next one, but it's on the website. And as well as the ordinance that has an updated title. It's on my list in the next couple of weeks to do the codification for the entire municipal code for the previous year. And that'll include those changes of Title 17 and 18, and I'll bring you guys new titles for each of your books once that's complete and passed by the council with those codes in it and that example of the building permit. And then lastly, on page 18, there's a memorandum Just updating the commission with the resolution of the Cole 2018 building permit application. This is something that had come back and forth in front of the commission with various building permits that were submitted, and then a variance request that was submitted, and had 2 public hearings. And just simply at the top of the memorandum, the conclusion was that the building permit application for Mr. Justin Cole received by the city in October 2018 and resubmitted by Mr. Cole in December 2019 and July 2020 has been resolved. New construction completed the week of August 21st, 2018 was removed, and a building permit is no longer required for this property. There's a summary that includes a timeline below. And that is where we are at with commission business. Unless the city manager has anything to add.
Right, thanks for, that was a very interesting reading through that. So now we're on to J, informational items not requiring action. There are none. Comments from the public. Are there any members of the public? No. And comments of the commission. So we can, Roger, if you have any comments.
Nothing prepared, but I think it was a good meeting. It definitely helped inform us, and I think it's what we did tonight was real helpful, so fruitful. That's about all I got.
And Tom, you have any?
I will definitely love to have the training. I mean, if we can just zoom in or something, just, anything we can do to help, as far as municipal codes. I think that'd be a good, interesting for me. I'm gonna do this job. No, but thank you guys. Anyone here to help? That's it.
I'd like to thank you for stepping up,
Yeah.
we need to find a couple more people
Sure.
that are city residents, right? 'Cause
Right.
they made an exception for me because I'm slightly outside the city boundary where I live. Yeah, it was a good meeting. I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out this plan and went through all the things, and I found there was just a few that are really important. That are higher, that apply to all the different items. So it seems like there's maybe half a dozen that are really key items. Focusing more on those. But yeah, it's been very interesting and good meeting. Yes. Thank you. Oh, I noticed it was nice that you could attend again. I don't know how often that happens. And then I noticed that the mayor is also a member, somewhere I was reading. So it's at some point. Should get him. And would that be prior to presenting to council, so we know more about what they're expecting? Or that's just a question. we can ask of him?
Yeah, and we do have the resolution that directed the planning commission to review the comprehensive plan. I don't know if you've seen it, but we can provide that to you, and it has some direction
Okay.
in the piece of legislation. And I think that is an excellent idea of inviting the mayor. I know I've been encouraged to attend, and I would like to attend on a regular basis with the planning commission. It's different than other cities where the city manager may or may not attend on a regular basis, but I definitely see the benefit.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. And thank you, Heidi, for preparing my script. I would have no clue of what I'm doing to run this meeting, but this is really helpful. So now we're on to the last, right towards the end here. The next regular meeting is scheduled for September 1st, 2021, again at 6 o'clock. So now we're at the favorite part of the meeting. Motion, I need a motion to adjourn. That's
Move to adjourn.
all right. So ordered. I get to bang my gavel.
Mhm.
Thank you, guys.
see
Thank
Holly.
you,
I'd
Roger.
really
Have a
like to do
lovely
Thank you.
evening.
Yeah, it's a good meeting.
Oh.
Oh, right, okay. I'm actually hitting.
Good night, Roger.
Good night.